What if the most devastating move in any emotional war isn't a screaming match or bitter payback, but the soft, irreversible sound of a heart quietly locking its gates? Imagine this. You've spent years carrying someone else's pain like invisible armor, letting their chaos seep into your veins like slow poison, only to wake up to the cold, undeniable fact they have no desire to heal. And in that single breathless moment, you let go. Not with explosions or tears, but with a stillness so complete it rewrites the rules of power forever. This is the instant a highly sensitive soul awakens their shadow. Exactly as Carl Jung predicted, a shift not into coldness, but into untouchable strength. Stay with me, because the story I'm about to share will change how you see empathy, manipulation, and the quiet force inside you that can break invisible chains without lifting a finger. Asterisk. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's the unfiltered, real-world journey of Aria, a deeply feeling woman whose life turned into a silent war of absorbed emotions. Through her, we'll explore Jung's deepest insights, psychological compensation, the explosive reversal of Enantiodromia, shadow integration that turns wounds into armor, and the path of individuation that makes you ruler of your own inner world. By the end, you'll see why stopping caring isn't giving up, it's the ultimate triumph. Asterisk. Opening scene. A dimly lit rooftop in a bustling modern city at night. City lights flicker below. A young woman with kind but exhausted eyes stands alone, wind tugging at her coat, staring into the distance. Asterisk. Aria's story starts in the everyday exhaustion of being too sensitive in a world that rewards numbness. She was the person who could walk into a room and feel every unspoken tension, every hidden hurt. By day, she worked as a nurse in a busy metropolitan hospital, holding the hands of the dying, calming panicked families, absorbing wave after wave of fear and grief until it lived in her own body. At night, she was the one friends called at 3 a.m. when life fell apart. They nicknamed her the listener, but no one noticed how listening was slowly erasing her. Asterisk. Then came Julian. He walked into her life like a beautiful disaster, charismatic, brilliant, with a smile that hid sharp edges. They met in an online community for people healing from childhood wounds. He posted raw, poetic confessions about his struggles with ambition, rejection, and self-worth. Aria felt his pain like a physical ache. I can hold space for him, she told herself. That's the classic trap Jung described in his work on the collective. Unconscious, the belief that your empathy can redeem someone else's darkness without costing you your light. Asterisk. Their first real conversation lasted hours. Asterisk. Julian, voice low. Intense. You actually see me. Everyone else just sees the success, the charm. You see the cracks. Asterisk. Aria, soft, reassuring. I do. And those cracks don't scare me. You're not alone in this. Asterisk. From that night on, Julian became her unspoken mission. His crises arrived like clockwork: failed business deals, explosive fights with investors, nights of heavy drinking followed by tearful apologies. He'd show up at her apartment unannounced, unraveling, and Aria would drop everything to rebuild him. She covered his rent when his startup collapsed, listened for hours when he blamed the world, defended him when friends warned her. She told herself, if I just love him harder, he'll heal. Asterisk. But Carl Jung warned about exactly this in his theory of psychological compensation. When one side of the psyche, endless compassion, dominates completely, its opposite gathers force in the shadows. Aria's boundless giving was building pressure behind a wall she didn't know existed. She stopped sleeping properly, lost weight, began having panic attacks she hid from everyone. "You're fading," her sister told her. Aria smiled and changed the subject. Empaths often confuse self-erasure with virtue. A year passed in a blur of emergencies. Julian's patterns grew darker, disappearing for days, returning with grand promises and lavish gifts, then crashing again. "You're the only one who believes in me," he'd say. Aria felt essential, irreplaceable but hollow. Jung called this buildup the prelude to Enantiodromia, the ancient principle he revived. When something is pushed to an extreme, it flips into its opposite. For Aria, the flip came on a freezing winter night. Julian called at 2, demanding she leave her night shift early to pick him up from a club where he'd started a fight. "If you loved me," he shouted, "you'd come right now." Aria, exhausted, voice breaking, "I've given you everything I have." "Julian, then maybe you don't love me enough." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, something inside Aria cracked open, not with rage, but with crystal clarity. She looked in the hospital bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the ghost staring back. Jung described this exact moment as the psyche's turning point, not destruction, but transformation, where suppressed instincts surge forward. She didn't argue. She didn't block him dramatically. She simply withdrew. No replies. No explanations. When he bombarded her with messages, guilt, anger, pleading, she read them without reacting. The guilt hit hard. Empaths are built for it. But underneath, it bloomed something new. Peace. This was her shadow rising, the part Jung insisted we must embrace. For sensitive souls like Aria, the shadow holds the fierce protector, the clear no, the self that refuses to be consumed. By denying it, she had invited exploitation. Julian wasn't just a lover. He was her mirror, showing her the power she'd abandoned. Scene shift. Aria walking alone through a snow-covered park at dawn. Breath visible, footprints the only mark in fresh snow. As she pulled away, the change accelerated. First came the silence. Manipulators feed on emotional response. Starve them of it, and their grip slips. Julian escalated flowers, voice notes full of tears, accusations of betrayal. But Aria saw it all clearly now. What Jung called psychological immunity, the calm detachment that protects without destroying. She began real shadow work. Late night journaling. Why do I keep rescuing people who won't rescue themselves? The answers traced back to a childhood spent mediating her parents' endless fights. Learning that love meant fixing pain at any cost. Jung's archetypes illuminated it. The caregiver run amok, the wounded healer who forgets to heal herself. Weeks turned to months. Energy returned like blood flowing back into numb limbs. She picked up her old camera again, shooting stark black and white cityscapes that captured raw human moments without absorbing them. Colleagues noticed the shift. "You seem lighter." The true test came when Julian appeared at her hospital, disheveled and desperate. "Julian, we need to talk. You can't just vanish from my life." Aria, steady, kind, but firm. "I didn't vanish. I finally arrived in my own." He stared, speechless. For the first time, his charm had no hook. Jung noted this reversal in toxic bonds. The empath's endless care is the chain. Cut it, and the illusion collapses. Aria didn't despise him anymore. She saw him plainly a man choosing chaos over growth. That clear seeing, Jung's radical acceptance, freed her from the fantasy that her love could force his change. Montage. Aria setting boundaries with patience, saying I'm here to support, not Carrie meditating on the rooftop at sunrise. Light gradually replacing shadows. Stopping caring didn't make her numb, it made her precise. She stayed deeply empathetic, but selective. She helped colleagues who helped themselves, mentored new nurses with clear limits, poured her sensitivity into photography that moved people without draining her. Her awakening spread. A fellow nurse, Sophia, confessed over coffee. My boyfriend treats me like an emotional dumping ground. How did you walk away? Aria, quiet smile. I didn't walk away from him. I walked toward myself. Jung called it Enantiodromia. The overgiving eventually flips. Sophia began small, one boundary at a time. Soon, her relationship either evolved or ended. Either way, she grew. Aria started leading small shadow work circles for healthcare workers burned out from compassion fatigue. One participant, a quiet doctor named Liam, admitted he'd become everyone's savior at work while crumbling inside. Aria guided him. Visualize your shadow as a guardian at the gate, letting in only what serves you. He practiced, began saying no to extra shifts, and found his authority respected for the first time. These stories multiplied. When one sensitive soul stops overgiving, it gives permission to others. Jung's idea of the collective unconscious in action, individual change ripples outward. Challenges still came. Old patterns whispered during quiet moments. A new patient, charming and chaotic like Julian, nearly pulled her back in. But Aria paused, breathed, and held the line. I can support your healing, but I won't live your pain for you. Discernment, not disappearance. Jung warned in The Undiscovered Self about modern society's emotional numbing. Yet empaths like Aria resisted by awakening one by one, then in waves. Years later, Aria stood on that same rooftop, but at sunrise. The city sparkled below, alive and neutral. Julian was a distant chapter, his storms no longer hers to weather. She had integrated her shadow, walked the full path of individuation. As Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is what happens when a highly sensitive soul stops caring indiscriminately. Freedom returns. Power settles in the bones, and life becomes yours again. If you're an empath standing at that edge, remember, Aria, your depth is sacred. Don't waste it on those who refuse to grow. Close the gate quietly. Lock it gently. And step fully into the asterisk.